Okay, sometimes we will read a seemingly insane headline related to Trump in some way. And I'll assume, oh, it was taken out of context. It's not nearly as insane. I'm sure the truth is not nearly as insane as that headline makes it seem. And sometimes it's true that when you look at the details, the headline is exaggerating. But more and more with the Donald Trump campaign, the comments are as crazy as they sound. Sometimes the headlines don't actually do justice to how nutty what we are hearing from Trump transition team members actually is. I'm talking today about our buddy Sean Spicer. Sean Spicer's the guy who a couple of weeks ago showed up all over corporate media talking about the completely imaginary fantasy world mandate that Donald Trump has, according to Sean Spicer. Obviously bogus. If you look at the electoral vote numbers, if you look at the popular vote numbers, however you want to look at it, I don't need to rehash that there is no bigger anti-mandate than the one facing Donald Trump right now. Sean Spicer was interviewed over the weekend. He was asked whether Donald Trump accepts the conclusions of U.S. intelligence that Russia is responsible for hacking that sought to damage Hillary Clinton and help Donald Trump during the 2016 election. Instead of answering, Sean Spicer chose to redirect to the idea of, brace yourselves, here we go now, the idea of punishing Hillary Clinton for trying to influence the results of the 2016 election. Yes, Hillary Clinton was a candidate, and the whole point of a campaign is to convince people to vote for you. So earth to Sean Spicer, that's what candidates do, but he wants her punished. And here he explains why, sort of.
Intelligence Committee
so he's
next
still not
week.
there yet.
It's not a question of not there yet, Jonathan. It's a question of getting the information. Everyone in the media wants to jump forward and make a conclusion based off other sourced information, anonymous sources that are coming out of the Intelligence Committee. He's going to do this right.
Well, this is no longer anonymous. This is a public statement.
What this says is that the DNC had a problem with their IT security and people tried to hack it, and they need to do a better job of protecting.
The Russians.
But the fact of the matter is, we're having part of a conversation. Why aren't we talking about the influence, other influences on the election? Why aren't we talking about Hillary Clinton? Get debate questions ahead of time. That's a pretty valid attempt to influence an election. Somebody giving her to the debate questions and the answers of an election. No, it's not. Hey, no one's asking those questions. And the fact is that everyone wants to make Donald Trump admit to certain things. When are we going to start talking about the other side of this? Which is, what did Hillary Clinton do to influence the election? Is she being punished in any way? What are we doing to
Someone gave Hillary not only the questions, but the answers to debate questions. That part is weird. Doesn't she know the answers to the questions?
Right. I mean, he's talking about when Donna Brazile prepped her before one of the debates in the Democratic primary.
Right.
But I mean, that's a lot different than what we have going on here.
Yeah, it also has nothing whatsoever to do with the national election campaign against Donald Trump. So Spicer allowed to dodge. If you can't get if you're a journalist and you can't get an answer from someone like Sean Spicer about something like this, you may not be able to do anything to get an answer, but I've dealt with this before. And the way you need to handle it is to say, oh, so you're not going to answer. And then usually that will put the person sort of on the defensive. They'll often claim to have answered, even though they really didn't. The fear of being accused of bias is so crazy that corporate media hosts are often afraid to even point out that the question hasn't been answered. The big goal for the Trump organization right now, the Trump transition, the president-elect administration, call it what you want, is, hey, look at this other shiny thing, redirection, distraction. And Trump is doing the exact same thing on Twitter, saying that, hey, instead of talking about the hacks, Trump said on Thursday, we ought to get on with our lives. It is all misdirection. And yeah, if Trump is doing soliloquies on Twitter, it's hard to keep him to task and say, answer the question. You have Sean Spicer here saying, what about punishing Hillary Clinton for trying to influence the election she was trying to win? That's not an answer. And corporate media needs to call it out and say, you were not answering the question.
Yeah, I think that tactic of not answering the question and then trying to say that what Hillary Clinton's doing is worse, that kind of worked during the campaign trail because it was a lesser of two evils campaign.
Sure.
Donald Trump won the election. This is over with. I mean, you have to take responsibility for your actions now.
Do some journalism. Say you're not answering the question. I will give you a third opportunity. I'm going to ask the question a fourth time. That's how you need to handle it. And the normalization of fake right-wing media narratives is going to be one of the greatest systemic dangers over the next 4 years. it has to be called out. And this is, the micro story is Sean Spicer shows up and he doesn't really want to talk about what Trump thinks about the hacking. And he wants to instead talk about Hillary Clinton. Still, by the way, even though she's lost, she has no role to play here whatsoever. That's the micro story. The macro story is think about all of the successful misdirection, redirection, and fake narratives that have been successfully created by right-wing media working with, in parallel with, Republican politicians. Death panels, fake. I mean, just absolutely fake. Huge, huge impact on voters. The war on Christmas, non-existent. I mean, just fabricated out of thin air. A lot of Republican voters think that's a real issue. Thinking that supply side economics is even remotely legitimate in terms of the ways of, trickle down and the claims that the right makes about how economics work. It's fake. I mean, it's a complete fake narrative. The Clintons are murderers, obviously. That's one that didn't get as much traction, but it got some because of right-wing media. Bernie Sanders will tax you at 90%. Obviously, that wasn't true. Planned Parenthood selling baby parts, completely fabricated story out of thin air. But because of the oxygen that it was given by right-wing media, even right-wing media that didn't completely say, hey, this is true, but continuing to talk about the controversy that was based on just bogus doctored video. Gay marriage will ruin straight marriage. Still waiting for examples of that. And then, Hillary Benghazi is another example. This really works, Pat. This is something that we need to be prepared for during the Trump administration. And mere fact checking is not going to be the solution.
Yeah, because I think the media a lot of the times portrays the issues as this side says this and the other side says this, and you have to make your decision on your own.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of just saying this is patently true or completely false.
The false choice and false balance is a big aspect of this. And I've spoken about this before. I'll just very quickly give you one example. So in an effort to not appear biased, corporate media might say, today we're talking about climate change. We're going to bring on two panelists. One is a climate scientist who, like 99.7% of climate scientists, believes that human activity on Earth is impacting the climate. The other is a scholar from the such and such institute, which if you Google, you realize is a climate science denying right-wing funded think tank who believes, like 0.3% of climate scientists, that humans are not having an impact. Let's have a debate, guys. It's 50-50. It's balanced. This is what's called fairness. That is false balance, Pat. And that can be just as biased or damaging to people's understanding of news stories as just overt bias editorially by news stations. And people don't get that.
Yeah, I mean, the correct way to portray that would be that the person that believes in climate change and that it's man-made gets to speak 97% of the time. That would be the way to do it.
I think it was John Oliver who did a pretty good piece sort of outlining this. In any case, Sean Spicer, obviously off the rails, Hillary Clinton being punished. It's all nonsense. But the bigger story is we need to be piecing together how we're going to manage the next 4 years to stop Trump's insanity. And I'll talk about that after the break. Gamefly is sort of like Netflix for video games. They have over 8,000 new and classic games for Xbox One, Xbox 360, PS4, PS3, Wii, and a bunch of other platforms. And you can play as many games as you want for one monthly fee. And if you find some games you want to keep, you can buy them for a low used price. There's never any due dates or late fees. And our audience can get a free 30-day trial at gameflyoffer.com/TDPS. The games are shipped directly to you with return envelopes included. There's no contracts, and you can rent games through the mobile app. Get the free 30-day trial for the David Pakman Show audience and support our show by going to gameflyoffer.com/TDPS.